told myself I broke one rule to save a life. What I broke was the part of me that could trust my own judgment. 2 months later, I was staring at a bank app that showed a $2,000 transfer to a woman who no longer existed, at least not under the name she gave me, and a Tinder profile that wore her face like it had stolen it. If you think a therapist should know better, so do I. That's the story. I'm Evan. I'm 38 and I practice therapy in a small clinic off 3rd Street in Corvallis, Oregon, where the coffee is good and people say hi even when they're late. Our clinic sits between a bakery and a dentist's office. The waiting room smells like tea and lemon cleaner. My office has a window that looks out on a maple tree that turns red like it's auditioning for fall. Most of my caseload is couples, anxiety, grief. I'm careful. I'm boring on purpose. Boundaries are the spine of the work. You keep your chair where it is. You don't take sides even when your bones want to. You don't rescue. You guide. You don't touch. You don't drink with clients. You don't loan money, ever. It is not your life. It is theirs. She first came in on a Wednesday that had the color of rain. She wrote, Kara Martin on the intake. 31, new to town, no kids. She checked boxes for trauma and domestic violence and financial stress. She sat in the chair like it had betrayed her, spine tipped toward the door. She had a bruise on her upper arm, yellowing at the edges. Do you feel safe to talk with me today? I asked. Safe is a funny word, she said. Her voice had that tired brightness people use when they need something and they hate needing it. My husband hits. Not every day, not always hard. I can't leave, I don't have money, and he controls everything. I did what the job asks. I slowed my own breath so she might match it. I asked about immediate risk. I offered resources, shelters, legal clinics, a local nonprofit that helps with protective orders. I explained, in simple language, mandatory reporting in Oregon and what I could and couldn't do without her consent. I asked if she had a plan for where to go if she needed to leave fast. She nodded in a way that meant no. I asked about the bruise. She said it was from a fall, then jerked and said it was from him, then changed it again to a door. The way stories change is data. The way pain doesn't know how to speak is also data. She came back Friday, then again the next week. When people are being hurt, the therapy is breath first, then steps. We wrote down a safety plan. She added a code phrase to text a friend. She promised she'd hide cash. She didn't bring a phone for 2 sessions because he checks. She cried and apologized and called herself dumb. I said out loud more than once that no one is dumb for being trapped. I asked if she wanted me to connect her directly to the advocate at the shelter. She said she couldn't. He watched the phone bill. The boundary broke on a Monday when she arrived with a cut on her lip, and I felt the kind of heat in my chest that doesn't belong to a clinician. It belongs to a brother. It belongs to a husband. It belongs to a neighbor who hears a fight and kicks a door. Every training I've ever taken says you're allowed to care but not to burn. That day, I burned. Tell me what you need from me right now, I said, careful with the words. I need someone who isn't afraid of him, she said. I need a person. When this ends, I will pay back everyone who helped me. I'm applying for a job at the plant. If I can just get to a lawyer, I can file. I won't need him for rent. I just need a bridge. We can call the shelter together, I said. He took my ID, she said. They asked last time. I didn't have it. They said they'd help me anyway, but then I didn't show. I couldn't show. He was waiting outside the grocery store. I heard myself say, can I take you to dinner after my last client today? Somewhere public. We can think. It's a sentence that has handcuffs attached. I knew it even as it left my mouth. I knew it, and I said it because I could not stand the chair anymore. She looked at me like I'd thrown a rope. Thank you, she whispered. We ate pho at a bright place where the broth makes your glasses fog. She sat with her back to the wall. She told me a version of her life that made everyone else the weather and her the person trying to get to the bus stop. He was a tyrant. He was unpredictable. He didn't want kids but didn't want protection. He cut up her debit card. He tracked her phone. He flirted with the idea of killing himself so she couldn't leave him grieving. It was a collection of red flags stapled into a dress, and I could feel my training starting to tear. This is wildly inappropriate, I said to my own reflection in the restaurant window after I walked her to her car. Then I kissed her. It was not long. It was not innocent. It was not therapy. It was me feeling brave and wanting to be named that by someone who needed me to be. The next morning, I told our clinic director I needed to transfer a client for reasons I didn't articulate. He nodded because he trusts me. He trusts me because I'm not the guy who makes messes. I emailed Kara a referral list. I apologized for the disruption. I called it burnout. She wrote back one line. I don't blame you. You'd think that would have stopped the slide. It didn't. Without a weekly appointment on the books, I became something else. I became a man who waited for texts. I got an interview at the plant, she wrote on a Thursday. If I get it, I can be out by April. That's good, I wrote. Do you need a ride? I can take the bus, she wrote. Can we meet for coffee after? I just need to see a friendly face. We met for coffee. We didn't pretend it was clinical. She reached for my hand across a small table like life jackets find each other. I told myself things I would mock if a client said them to me. I told myself I was the exception because my motives were clean. I told myself I was helping in a way the system couldn't. I told myself I'd never been the kind of man who had his name said like a solution. 2 months of that is a lifetime if you erase the rules. We ate late. We kissed longer. I didn't bring her home. I didn't cross certain lines because I needed to pretend some lines were still real. We never called what we were. She didn't want to talk about labels. She wanted to talk about the future. The night she asked for the money, she'd just come from what she said was a meeting with a pro bono attorney who could file for an emergency protective order if she paid fees and a filing cost, and she needed to serve her husband. And she didn't have the last 3 pay stubs because he'd stolen them and everything felt like a house where the doors were fake. She cried in the car and said, I know what this looks like. It looks like I need you for money. I need you to believe I don't. I will pay you back the day I'm free. I swear, I will pay you back the day I'm free. I swear, I hate this part. It's just money, I said, the kind of sentence you only say when you've never needed it to not be. We'll make a note on paper. You'll pay me back when you can. I don't want to be part of your stuckness. I want you out. 2,000, she said. That covers the filing, a retainer for the paralegal, and service. I can sell my jewelry later. I can pay you then. I'm not a taker. I pulled over in the grocery store lot and opened my banking app. I didn't have Zelle on that account. I used a different app and entered her full name the way she'd spelled it on the intake, only now the middle initial was different. I didn't notice. I noticed her tears stop. I noticed the relief in her shoulders like a curtain being lifted. You really did that, she said, small and raw. It's just money, I said again, which in my mouth had the tone of a spell. You're a good man, she said. I won't forget this. She kissed me like gratitude and hunger are cousins. I let it tell me the story I wanted to doze inside. A week later, her phone stopped answering. Her read receipts turned off. She missed a coffee we'd planned. She didn't text to cancel. She didn't reply when I asked if she was safe. I called twice. It went to voicemail. On the second message, I heard the shape of my own voice wobble. Just tell me you're okay, I said. I don't need details. I just need to know that you're breathing and with people who aren't hurting you. The silence that follows a moral mistake is not quiet. It buzzes. It changes your meals. It moves into your shoulders. 2 days after she vanished, I opened Tinder with the same logic a person uses when they look for a lost thing in a place it cannot be. It was late. I was angry at my phone like it had withheld something. I swiped without looking at faces. Then she looked back. The name said Lila. The photo was Kara's, the one with her hand in her hair by a mural downtown. The bio said, new in town, love coffee, be kind, or go home. The age was a year off. The distance said 3 miles away. I read it twice because disbelief often needs a second pass. I matched just to test the world for electricity. I wrote, do we know each other? The 3 dots came up and held like a juggle. Then, I have one of those faces, she wrote, but I'd know you if I'd met you. I closed the app and put the phone on the counter like it could burn wood. I turned off my porch light. I went to the bathroom and looked at my face as if I might find the reason other people go missing in the mirror. The next morning, I called my friend Ray, who writes for a regional paper and has the friendly paranoia of someone who must verify people for a living. I need to tell you how I broke a rule, I said. How illegal? She asked. Not illegal, I said, just ugly. Okay, she said. Talk to me like I'm a reporter and also your friend. I told her about the intake. I told her about the bruise that moved sides in the story. I told her about the kiss, dinner, the forwarded list of resources, and the requests I ignored because I liked the way saving her made me feel strong. I told her about the $2,000. I told her about the Tinder profile with the wrong name and the right face. You think she's a con, Ray said. She said it softly, the way you say a word that might contain you if you open it. I think I wanted to matter so badly that I didn't notice I was being given the role, I said, and I think if she's done this to me, she's done it before. Ray got that quiet she gets when I can feel the scaffolding of a story being built in her head. "Do you have texts?" she asked. "Anything on paper?" Her full name, his. I sent her screenshots. The text from the night of the transfer, the bank transfer confirmation where the recipient read K.A. Martin, and in the details the note I'd typed like a fool, retainer for filing. The coffee dates, the bruise description that changed in writing, the Tinder profile. I sent her the intake form redacted to the initials and intake date because I couldn't hand her a file without turning myself into something else. I sent her the shelter's number in case she wanted context for what help usually looks like. Ray called back in an hour, sounding like she'd run somewhere. "I need you to breathe," she said. "I can't print your therapy notes, I won't. But I can look into the names you gave me. If I find something, I'll ask you for comment and you can decide if you want to be on the record. I've done 3 stories on sweetheart scams, and every time the scammer uses the same 5 paints, only the picture changes. Does she ever say she needs to get her car out of a tow yard? Medical bills? A mother in hospice? A landlord? Anything that hits fast and feels righteous to pay?" "Lawyer fees," I said, "filing, and he supposedly took her ID." "Classic," she said. "If you see her on Tinder, take screenshots with the time. Not because the police will need them for this, but because if she's using the same photo under 2 names, it helps me map her." Next question. "Did you ever see the husband?" "No," I said. "Just shadows, the kind of stories that make a person you haven't met feel like a monster you can project anything on." "Okay," she said. "I want you to bring me everything you have, and I want you to call your clinic director after we hang up and tell him you need to recuse yourself from any contact. Put it in writing. You may not be disciplined. You might be. Either way, if this turns into something I can publish, the first question someone will ask is why the therapist didn't tell anyone. I want you to have told someone." I called my director. I told him I'd had contact with a former client outside session. I told him I'd given money. I said I'd terminated properly on paper and then unterminated improperly in the world. I didn't try to make it neat. "I'm disappointed," he said, like a dad who won't yell because that would absolve you too easily. "But I'm glad you told me. Put it in writing. Take a week off. We'll talk about whether you need to make a voluntary report to the board. We'll call it a leave." I typed the email like you type a confession. I wrote a draft to the board and didn't send it yet because Ray told me to wait 24 hours and drink water. Then I drove to her office with a folder of printed screenshots like I was submitting to a museum of my own poor decisions. The investigation moved faster than my shame. Ray found a Kara Martin in Albany, Oregon, who lived with a man named Jason Dane, no marriage license on file, 2 evictions in the past 5 years, a small claims court case where a landlord from Salem alleged unpaid rent and damage, settled out of court, social media that didn't show her face, just sunsets and borrowed quotes about strength. A Facebook message thread in a private group for women warning of scams that mentioned a woman named Lila who asked for money to leave a husband. Ray messaged 3 posters privately. 2 replied. 1 sent a Venmo screenshot for $750 to the same initials I had in my bank app. Another sent a grainy photo of Kara outside a pawn shop. "Evan," Ray said when she had the pieces lined up on her desk like planks. "I think they run this together. I think he's not the tyrant. I think he's the accomplice. I think the bruise is makeup half the time and from a scene the other half. I think you got played by a script. I think 20 or more got played this year alone. There's a name for this kind of hustle. They call it the rescue con. The hook is that a good person gets to be the hero." I wanted to believe she was wrong. I also wanted her to be so right the world would spin back into sense. "Can you prove it?" "If I can, I'll publish," she said. "If I can't, I'll hand what I find to the police quietly. Either way, I need you to stop thinking you're the only character in this. You are not. There are probably men and women who wired money this month because she told them she'd die if they didn't. I need you to decide if you want to be the reason they get a warning." "Do it," I said. "You can use my first name, or you can call me Evan C., or you can call me a cautionary tale. Just don't let me be the last." The next week tasted like copper. Ray filed a public records request for police reports with the name she had. She did what she does best. She looked where liar light leaves shadows. She found a pawn receipt that matched Kara's driver's license number at a shop in Salem. She found a phone number used to contact 3 different victims that pinged a tower near a weekly motel off I-5, registered to a Jason D., paid with a prepaid debit card. She cross-checked the Tinder profile photo with a reverse image search. It didn't exist anywhere else with that name. She went to the motel with a photographer and came back with a plate number that matched the guy in Albany. She called the county sheriff's office and asked for a comment on a developing story about a scam targeting vulnerable people. "We're aware of reports," the spokesperson said, "which is code for, there is a file and we might knock on a door." I took my leave seriously. I walked in the morning under the maples and tried to forgive the person who had been drinking courage from the wrong cup. I printed a sign that said my clients would be covered by colleagues and that I was unavailable until a date. I fielded 2 emails from long-term clients who saw the sign and wanted to check I was not dying. I told them I was not. I told them I would see them when I could trust my steering again. Ray's story ran on a Monday. It was careful. It was mean, only in the way fact is mean to people who like soft corners. The headline was the kind of headline that makes people click because it smells like both danger and justice. She called it "The Rescue, That's a Trap." She described, without names, how the con works. A woman appears in therapy or at church or in a support group with a story of abuse and no money. She asks for a loan for legal fees. She disappears. She reappears online under a new name. She repeats. Ray included quotes from 2 men and 1 woman who'd given money. She also included a comment from the sheriff's office saying 2 suspects had been detained pending investigation. She ended with a paragraph about boundaries and how predators look for our best parts and invite them to do something reckless and call it love. They arrested them 2 days later in a parking lot behind a craft store. Ray texted me a photo from the far edge of the scene. A woman who was and wasn't Kara sat on a curb with her hands behind her back. A man beside her looked at the asphalt like it had answers. It was not satisfying. It was a hole in the story where triumph should be. I did not want to cheer. I wanted a time machine. She called me that night from a number I didn't know. "Evan," she said, and the shape of my name in her mouth was a weapon I had given her. "How did you get this number?" I asked. "You think I couldn't," she said. "You think I didn't write down everything you ever said in case you turned on me? I'm not stupid, neither are you. You knew what you were doing when you crossed that line. Now you get to be a saint who saved the town. How does that feel?" "It feels like I owe a lot of people an apology, starting with myself," I said. He got on the line. I recognized his voice because Kara had taught me how to hate it in absentia and because he was utterly average. "You're not special," he said. "There were bigger fish, pastors, a guy who runs a charity. You'll get to feel like a hero, but all you ever were was useful." "I was lonely," I said. "I wanted to fix something that didn't ask me to look at my own stuff. That's over." "You put us in jail," he said. "I didn't write the policy that landed you there," I said. "Ray did her job. The police did theirs. I'm trying to do mine before I ruin it." He laughed, the way men laugh when they can't find your shame to lick. "You'll tell on yourself to the board. Good boy." "I will," I said. I did. The board wrote back in a tone so measured, I wanted to measure myself against it. They thanked me for the voluntary disclosure. They scheduled a review. They asked for documentation of termination and of the clinic's policies. They recommended I complete additional training on boundaries and exploitation and to provide proof of supervision hours with a senior clinician. They did not yank my license. They put me on notice that the thing I'd done is how people lose the good work forever. I did every training twice. I met with a supervisor in Salem who has a voice like a slow river and an ability to say a sentence that cuts and heals on the same blade. "Your goodness is not a credential," he said in our first meeting, after I admitted I'd liked how heroic I felt. "It's a liability until you learn to aim it." I cut off contact with Kara. The sheriff's office didn't ask me to testify because the cases they could charge didn't need me. The DA offered them a plea. They took it. Fraud, restitution, probation. No jail time beyond what they'd already sat out. The law is practical. It is not a script for moral satisfaction. Ray followed up 3 months later with a piece that wasn't about them. It was about what happens to people after they get played. She asked me if she could quote me by name about boundaries. I said yes, because hiding is just a different kind of lie. She wrote that what makes us generous makes us targets, and the answer isn't to become stingy, it's to become better architects of our giving. She wrote that therapists are not immune to human hunger, and that power without supervision is a recipe for harm dressed in rescue. At the clinic, we built a protocol for situations that look like Kara. We created a direct, on-call pipeline to advocates, a checklist for what we can and can't promise, and a rule that any whiff of boundary feelings is a consult, not a confession to the mirror. I tell new interns the story of my mistake when we do ethics orientation. I do not name her. I name myself and the part of me that wanted to be thanked more than I wanted to be effective. Sometimes they flinch. Sometimes I see recognition. Ray and I still get emails. The story traveled. Not everyone believed it. People prefer their villains to be cleaner and their victims to be saints. But I have 3 messages from people who changed their minds about wiring money after meeting someone online who looked like need. One wrote that she gave to a shelter in her town instead. One wrote that he set up a monthly donation to a legal aid clinic because the need is real even when the story is false. One wrote that he bought groceries for a neighbor he already knew. I read those on bad days. A year after the arrests, I sat under the maple outside my office and watched the light make a stained glass out of the leaves. I don't trust as easily as I did. I don't think that's a failure. It's scar tissue. It keeps things from breaking the same way twice. In session, I am better, slower, cleaner with my yes, braver with my no. When clients want me to be a father or a friend or a god, I say a sentence that takes the stage back to where it belongs. I'm your therapist, I tell them. That's how I can help you best. It's not heroic, it works. Kara wrote me once from a new email. The subject line said, apology. The body said, I used the worst parts of me to survive and hurt people with the best parts of them. I'm sorry. It read like a drunk text to a mirror. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to Ray, then archived it. I made tea. I called my supervisor and told him the email had arrived and that I had not replied and that I had taken a breath and gone for a walk. He said, good, we moved on. People ask what I lost. I lost the part of me that enjoyed being believed without having to earn it. I lost the fantasy that doing a wrong thing for a right reason baptizes it. They ask what I gained. I gained a thing I didn't know I was missing. I gained the weight of being a professional in rooms where people bring me the raw meat of their life and ask me to cook it into something edible. I gained an oath to a job that deserves oaths. I still sit in that office with the maple leaf window. I still have a chair that faces the door for people who need to know they can leave. I still meet people who want to be rescued and people who want to be forgiven for what they did to themselves and people who want to know if the story they're in can have another chapter. I tell them the truth. I paid $2,000 to say without shaking. Help is not the same as saving. Boundaries are the shape love takes when it wants to last. If you take anything from my mess, let it be this. The impulse to help is good. It is holy even. But goodness without structure is gasoline. Con artists will hand you a match and a story and a reason. Learn to give with receipts through systems built to hold the weight. Learn to say no when your yes is really about you. 2 questions for you. If someone broke your trust by using your kindness against you, would you harden or would you reroute your giving? And what would that look like where you live? What boundary have you learned the hardest way, and how did you make it a practice instead of a scar? Like, comment, and subscribe for more stories like this one.